dropping photography knowledge all day long. Right?
Yes. I love that intro, you guys. It's one of my favorite songs. Welcome to the Kilo Bravo Delta Zone podcast. It's official. You are in the Keith B. Dixon Zone for another podcast broadcast. I want to thank you for listening and supporting this podcast. It's listeners like you that inspire me to grow and provide more and more content for your enjoyment. Thank you once again. I really appreciate you. You know, when is enough enough? When is enough enough? Like, OMG. Let me tell you what prompted me to even talk about this. I was on Facebook yesterday and I saw a posting from Carlos Gil. Now, I respect Carlos Gil and I love his content. I love his hustle. I love what he does. So by all means, this is not a knock on Carlos Gil. This is a knock on the ideal that Carlos Gil presented, which I don't agree with. And there's going to be that time where as thought leaders, we're not going to agree on what's happening. And I think that just opens the door for a really healthy debate so that we can get to the bottom line of what things really mean, because people are listening to us. People are hinged on our every word. And I'm a constant believer in, you know what, we got to be as accurate as possible. And just, sometimes it's better to say, I was off base on that one. So that you can let people know that you're human and you make mistakes too. So here's the posting, and I didn't know if I really wanted to even respond because I hate getting caught up in post and, but as it relates to technology, you guys, I love technology. I love what it's doing for me. It's allowing me to be a more productive entrepreneur. I say entrepreneur, but I really like to say entrepreneur, right? It's helping me to do that. So in the posting, he stated that there was a company or that social media managers were basically on their way out the door. And I'm paraphrasing this. They were on their way out the door because companies were starting to look at these bots that would auto respond to you. If you basically emailed them, a bot would respond back and with an answer. So essentially, you're not going to be talking to a live person. You're going to be talking to a bot. And he felt like this was going to be, this was going to take over, and this is going to be the next wave. And I listened to it, and I was like, that can't be. That can't be. And I gave some examples. I talked about bottled water, for instance, because I can see how sometimes we can get ethered up on the fact that this new technology is going to replace a job that someone is doing that would save a company money. We get ethered up on that all the time. But see, here's the deal, right? Remember when bottled water, people started talking about bottled water, everybody was like, oh, that's ridiculous. We're never going to pay for something that's already free. And guess what? Bottled water, real popular. Adobe. Think about Adobe, you guys. Adobe switched from a box product to the cloud-based system. People were up in arms about that. It was like, what are you going to do? Boycott them? I mean, it was ridiculous. I mean, they flooded the community, the Adobe communities where people were posting. It was crazy. I followed that, and I can remember people would get on the Terry White's blog and just go all in, on Adobe. And I kind of saw it as this is something that really needed to happen because we're cutting down trees and using inks and all that. But on the flip side, printing companies were going to suffer because of it, because that product was no longer that opportunity and that product was no longer going to be able to be available to them. But this is where innovation and change will get the best of you. So if there's a better way to do it, if you were a printing company, I was going to say, you know what, you should have saw that coming and started planning otherwise, maybe creating different print technologies and thinking of different things to do. Maybe it was like, we're going to go from print to digital design. I don't know. I'm not a printer, but I'm just thinking you could have got out on the 8-ball, got out in front of the 8-ball on that. So yeah, technology hurts sometimes, but that was necessary. Here's another one. Think about going into the grocery store and there's a line of people. I mean, a long line. I mean, that's frustrating in itself just seeing it. So guess what they did? They automated checkout stands. Now, that goes against total tradition in terms of buying groceries. You know what? I'm going to bag my own groceries and I'm going to ring up my own groceries. That's insane. But you know what? We live in just a technology driven state. How could you not expect it? People fought against that. People argue, unions. I mean, just it was crazy. But guess what? There's still one person standing there watching you check out your food and helping you, because the technology, although it did make sense, it wasn't 100%. So there's an application there that was totally necessary, but it didn't totally fulfill the need. Now let's fast forward to these bots, answering your emails. Look, I read a book by called the Purple Goldfish. Purple Goldfish, you guys. And everything that I've been reading since then has basically led me to believe that we are in a relationship-based selling environment or time or period in our business. That's where we are. Relationships are becoming more and more important as a business owner than ever before. There's this term called top-down selling, you guys. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but there's a term called top-down selling where information is basically given to you, and then you make a decision. And if you can't make a decision, there's going to be somebody there that can help you make a decision based on some benefits. You don't really have a choice in the matter, and that's how top-down selling works in a nutshell. Media is also top-down. Before social media, before live streaming, there was no way for us to really connect and talk to our audience to get them to know us. Matter of fact, you turn on the television and everything is dictated to you. You didn't even have a say in it. Now you can comment back. And I got to tell you, I think America was kind of scared of that concept at first. Businesses were scared. That's gone. That's old. That's old capitalism at its finest. It's not going to work anymore. And before we go any further, you might be thinking, well, let's say you're listening to this and you're just super brand new to this whole thing, and you're saying, what does this guy really know? Who the heck is he? Well, I do have a little bit of education. Matter of fact, I got a lot of education in organizational communication, right? Organizational structures. That's what I studied. And the one thing that I know about traditional companies is they're typically segmented, fractured, and they don't change very easily. If I had to look back on my education and say, what did I pick up from it? I picked up that companies can't change instantly. And we're seeing that to this day. Even now, they don't know what to do with social media. Most companies don't. They don't know. They're sending their CFOs and CEOs and their chief technology officers to courses and workshops to learn about how to navigate this thing. How much do we really focus on this content, these platforms? How do we manage it? How do we shift our business without putting ourselves at risk? That's what's going on here. Look, you guys, we're using apps for everything that we do. I want you to think about this. We're using apps for everything: food, banks, shopping, health. There's an app for it. Guess what? Companies have figured that out. Like, we do have to have apps. Matter of fact, you can order your lunch right now on an app and never really talk to a person. I'm going to tell you that's fair game. Because if you know the restaurant, there's a prior relationship there. You've eaten at that restaurant at some point. You might even know somebody that works there. We're not really putting them out of a job. We're helping them to expand their business. That is good use of technology, because they can reach more and more people that are not able to make it into that restaurant. If they only have 10 seats and they have an app that can basically get some food delivered, they've just expanded that. This is an outstanding use of technology. Now look, we might not be able to interact with them, but we are operating on prior relationship. And I want to give you an idea of that so you can really take this message and take it home with you. Think about Panda Express. A lot of us have eaten at Panda Express. We know what the food's going to be like. We know the consistency of it. We just know it. There's a prior relationship there. When you walk into any Panda Express, they all pretty much look the same, right? And that's the comfort that you have in going to any Panda Express. They're all going to look the same. The food's all going to be the same. So there's going to be a credibility there. So we factor in an app, and guess what? guess what, you guys? We're still going to feel comfortable until we get used to the delivery process. So you can literally call up DoorDash and have them go to Panda Express and pick up your favorite meal and have it dropped off at your office within an hour. Okay, I'm going to say that's good use. Domino's Pizza, wherever you eat, and I'm just using Panda Express. Domino's Pizza, you can text. If you have an account set up with them, you can literally text Domino's Pizza a picture of a piece of pizza, and based on your profile, they'll deliver a pizza to your house. That is amazing. I'm going to say amazing use of technology, groceries, the whole thing. Now, here's my question. Do we really need all of that, you guys? I want you to really stop and ask yourself, do you really need all of that? What did we do before? What did we do before? We got up, we put on our shoes, we got our keys, our bicycle, we walked, whatever we had to do, and we went to the store and bought this stuff. Now it's like, let me order my groceries. If I go to the store, let me bring my own bags and then ring up my groceries. Times are changing. And you know what? I got to be honest with you. People are resistant to change. That's obvious. People are resistant to change. And I think if we're going to apply technology, because, this is really about the over application of it, we have to be thoughtful, I think. We have to be thoughtful. And I'm going to tell you the thing that I really liked about technology and the thing that really turned me on about it was when it first came out, people were very cautious about how they introduced technology. They wanted it to work. They didn't release it until it worked. Windows, for instance, they would release Windows and yet it would have some bugs in it or whatever, but they were releasing perfection. That all went out the window the minute money became a factor, investors became a factor. Companies started to basically say, well, you know what, let's just get it out there and we'll fix it later. It's almost like that thing, and I'm guilty of saying this, do it and ask for forgiveness later, but you know what, we got to draw the line on something like that because people are dependent on it. People are dependent on it and you're dependent on it too. And if it goes bad, they're not going to buy it. The customers that you have are more valuable than the customers you're going to acquire, right? Because new customer acquisition, all that is a fancy word for saying new customers are more expensive than your customers that you have right now because they know who you are. Your new customers, you got to spend time convincing them to buy, and that's what makes it a challenge. So I'm going to say that sometimes you can use technology to get at those clients and you can keep using it and it can become an overuse of technology. They see it and you don't see it. And then what happens on the flip side is you start introducing more technology into your business, like bots, for instance, because Carlos Gill, if you're listening, the cost of putting that in there, and it's far less than the cost of losing that client who might want to call up and hear a voice for the littlest thing. Maybe they want to figure out, how they can put this screw in right, but they just want to talk to somebody. I know when I call up a company that I'm spending a lot of money with, for instance, like my, watch this, like my cell phone company, I don't want to talk to a recording. I want to talk to a person because I don't want to be constrained by pushing a button on the phone. I don't. I want to talk to somebody. That's going to make me feel better. So I don't know that a bot, I don't know that, if I type a response, I don't want a canned answer. And I don't know, where artificial intelligence is. I'm not an expert at it. I haven't even studied it, but I know one thing for a fact, right? You're going to get a canned answer some kind of way. You're going to get a canned answer unless there's a human at the other end. If I say to that person on the other end of the phone, you know what, I am pissed off right now, can they respond to that? I mean, think about Siri on your phone. I want you to think about this. Think about Siri. Great ideal. Does it work effectively? No, right? I can remember times, and I'm a big Apple fan. I can remember times where I've asked Siri for something when I was driving and it just didn't work. So think about that. It just didn't work. So think about how bots are going to respond. I think it's just ridiculous, you guys. So the point I want to make is, will the technology work for you? And that's one of the things that you really have to think about moving forward. Will it work for you? Never mind everybody else. Will it work for you? And how does it work for you? How does it work for you? And I think one of the biggest decisions you can make about technology is the cost factor. What is the cost factor of that technology? And you know what? That's a dangerous thing because, if we really drill it down, the cost factor automatically leads to money. But no, there's so much more to cost factor than just money. What is it going to cost you emotionally? What is it going to cost you in relationship? What is it going to cost you in exposure? What is it going to cost you in time? That is a whole drill down all in itself. What is it going to cost you in experimentation? What if it's a total disaster? And I think when I look back at traditional companies, they're well aware of this kind of stuff. We're not going to jeopardize our relationship on a Snapchat platform. We're not going to do it, right? We don't even like the association to the demographic. A lot of companies feel that way. Some of them say, you know what, we're not going to get on Twitter and say anything because we don't want to open the floodgates to possibly how bad our service really is. So we're going to stay away from that because Twitter is open to the world versus a Facebook page where you might only have your fans and your fans may only know where that page is. So there's a cost factor to everything that we do when we apply technology. And that's what you have to start to begin to think about, as you adopt whatever it is you're going to adopt down the road. I know you're probably thinking, this is a lot of information. This is a lot of information. It is. And as entrepreneurs, we put ourselves at a disadvantage. Watch this. When we don't understand technology as an entrepreneur, we put ourselves at a disadvantage. As photographers, we put ourselves at a deep disadvantage as photographers because I got to put my seatbelt on. I don't want to fall out of my chair right now, but as a photographer, our entire business platform is based on technology. It is totally 100% based on technology. If you have a workflow, I got to tell you, you are far more dependent on an Adobe. You are far more dependent on, the type of camera technology you're using or the plugins. You are dependent on that. If those companies go out of business, you've got to go back and find a whole completely different way. Look at Nick Filters, for instance. Imagine being invested in that technology. You've built your entire process of photography around Nick Filters, only to find out that they've gotten bought out by Google, who has no intention on doing anything with the product. They just wanted to disappear them. And now there's no more updates. There's nothing. It's gone. Imagine that. But imagine if you just left yourself some outs and you didn't make your business totally based on that. I think about it all the time. Now I got to tell you, because I'm at this point right here, I am being totally hypocritical right now, myself. I will admit that because my business is heavily reliant on my iPhone. I run my business off of 2 telephones, one to answer to clients, the other one to live stream like I'm doing right now. And if you were at the time of this recording on this podcast, I was actually live streaming it as well. This is how I use technology. I'm relying on all of it. And that scares me sometimes because I often think, well, what if there was a power blackout for 2 days? I think about what if there was an earthquake and the power was out in my neighborhood for 2 or 3 days? How would I communicate? How would I broadcast? How would I make things happen? And I think as I relate to that, you'll notice on my Periscope from time to time, I constantly do broadcasts without production. So when you log on, you just see me like you do right now. If you're watching the live stream part of this, you just see me because I want people to understand that I'm not glued to or overusing technology. I'm going to be honest with you guys, and transparent in anything that I say or do. I'm really only relevant on 2 platforms at the most. And that's, watch this, you guys. That's Twitter and Facebook. Twitter or Twitter and Periscope. That's where my relevancy is as a live streamer. I don't have a huge presence on YouTube. I don't have a huge presence on Instagram. I got an okay presence on Facebook, but my total concentration is on Periscope-based products. But you know what I think about? What if those companies went away? What if all those rumors and hypes are true? I don't think they are because Periscope is moving forward. They're getting into media. They're hedging their bet. There's no way. I just don't believe. And I'm going to say this here on this broadcast. There's no way. Periscope and Twitter is one of the biggest, most viable platforms in the world. And I don't know if you guys know this, but and this is a good use of technology. You know, when the rebels were trying to overthrow Gaddafi, they used Twitter to basically relay coordinates to the UN Air Force to drop bombs. I mean, come on, they're going to go out of business? No, it's not going to happen. It's the true innovator of microblogging. Like I don't care. Revenues. I mean, companies have been going through up and downs on revenue all just forever. You know, I don't think it's a factor. And the advent of Periscope, I think the worst thing that Periscope could do, and one of the things that I like about Periscope is they don't follow what everybody else does. They just do what they do. And that's what I like about Periscope. That's what I like. I like a platform that's like, you know what, we're going to do what we do. When we introduce the super hearts, we'll introduce it. When we monetize, we'll monetize on our own platform. I kind of like that grittiness about Periscope and Twitter, you know, like, hey, we're going to do what we do. You know, when people got on there and started doing all these races and ranting type of posts, Twitter shut them down ASAP. Go get you an attorney. Go cry to whoever you got to cry, but you ain't going to do it here. I like that grittiness. And Facebook is the same way, you know. They're just the masters of their own universe. So, but then again, we get into this whole thing of productivity, you guys. That was my rant on that, by the way. Sometimes I just like to say what I'm going to say, you know. That was my rant on that. But ultimately, I think the most important thing you really have to think about is productivity and not over applying to the point where, you know, you've reached your threshold in productivity and then you just keep applying all this technology that's just really not doing you any good. And it's really hurting your customer base. It's really hurting the consistency of your product, you know, because it's just not doing anything. And I think we have to stop and take a look at that. So if you were going to walk away with anything in this broadcast, I'm going to tell you that you have to look at the cost factors, and it's not just monetarily. You know, there are a lot of other cost factors that go with this. Money just seems to be the most obvious because it takes money to do just about anything. But, you know, what's the cost factor of, what's the emotional cost factor? You know, what is that? What is the theoretical cost factor? I mean, we could look at this a million different ways, you guys, seriously, as it relates to the cost of applying technology. Do you even need the technology? Do we really look at our cars? I have a truck, a pickup truck, you guys. It's a pickup truck. It's a new one. It's top of the line, but I have a pickup truck. It probably has more technology than I've ever seen in my life inside of a car. I mean, do I need all of that? I mean, it's got, I can get on Facebook. I can do everything right from my dash. Do I use it? No. Matter of fact, I don't even use the GPS in my truck. I use my phone. I put my phone up on the mount, my Archon mount, and I use GPS on there and Bluetooth to the speaker. Like, do we really need that type of technology? Well, I think it depends on who you are. Is it an overuse of technology? I don't know, right? Maybe I know people are different. I know people are different than I am. There may not be somebody who has a great phone and maybe those features work very well for them. I don't know. But I can tell you the only thing that I do is I listen to satellite radio. Do I have 1,000 apps on my phone? Not literally 1,000, but I have quite a few. I definitely can tell you that. I have quite a few apps on my phone. And I'm going to tell you right now, as a consumer, I'm very meticulous about the amount of apps that I download. And the reason why is because I don't want to use something or download something that I'm not going to use. And I think we got to start looking at how that affects us. Companies have to start thinking about how using technology sometimes is not so good because it isolates us. It creates division. Now, you know, before I used examples about having a restaurant and an app that delivers food. If there's a prior relationship there, I think it's great. But what if there's not? What if I don't know anything about this company? And that's where we have to get in and start thinking about what our workflow is going to be like. You know, typically when you think of workflow, you think of it as just some techie business related, thing that you do. But I'm going to say that there's workflow in everything. There's workflow in your household. You wake up in the morning, you eat breakfast. Your wife or your husband might cook breakfast. Your significant other, your partner may cook breakfast for you. That's part of the workflow. This is what we get up and do on a daily basis. It helps us to structure and get focused on our life. Well, guess what? In your business, you have to do the same thing. You have to do the same thing. You've got to focus on. You got to focus on. You got to focus on a direction. You got to focus on what you're doing, and that's how workflow is so effective. So guess what? In companies, when they're trying to develop or perfect something, they're trying to get a focus on something. They tend to lean towards technology. What can we do to focus this at a minimum cost, just in case it doesn't work or it does work? How can we remain more profitable? And I can remember hearing, I don't know, I don't remember where I heard this, but I remember someone saying, you know what, companies are more apt to basically shave off cost so that they can take care of their investors before their employees. And then this person went on to say, why would a company pay more attention to their customers than their actual employees who help make the company? It should be employees first and customers second. Because guess what? When you invest in a person, when you invest in your employees, they're more likely to be committed and loyal. They're more likely to be committed and loyal. And guess what? They're going to go the extra mile, which is going to actually produce more customers for you because that's your front line. That's who's representing your company. But imagine plugging technology into that. Oh boy, I'm not really sure how that relationship is going to get created because I'm going to be talking to a computer. Hey, Mr. Computer, I'm typing this on my keyboard and I'm talking to the computer on the phone. Hey, how you doing? How's it going? Look, how was your fishing trip? I don't do fishing trips. I just work all the time. There's no relationship there. How's your day going? Right? How are you going to ask a computer? How much sense is that? How are you going to ask a computer, hello, how's it going? How's your day going? The computer's going to say, great. It doesn't even have feelings. Like, it's ridiculous. I think when technology replaces people in that capacity, I think it's going to be ridiculous. Matter of fact, I'm not even going to do business with a company like that. It's not going to happen for me. I will definitely take that boycott road. I don't care what product it is. When the day that happens, I'm out. Right, I'm done. Because you know what? The personal relationship to me is not going to be as valuable, and that's your signal. I think as a company, you're signaling that to people. Does it help small business? Would something like that help small business? Absolutely not. I think people want to be on the ground floor of anything, and if they can call or say, hey, you know what, I was working with that guy when he first started his company, great. I think you'll be better off. Okay, so that's my idea on workflow. And last, we're going to get up out of here. Consistency is everything that we do. And I think when you start out and you hit your stride as a business owner, a photographer, whatever you're doing, a creative, when you hit your stride, that means essentially you are in a level of consistency, and you're upping that consistency day in and day out. You're just upping that consistency, hopefully. And hopefully people will see that, right, and latch on to it. But I think when you start to change up or add things in a way where it's just excessive, or maybe technology is warranting it, but your relationship was built on the past, you got to stop and really pay attention to that, because it's going to disrupt, right? It's going to be disrupt, and sometimes disruption is good, like Adobe, but it's going to disrupt your relationships. And you have to really think that through so that you can continually maintain your consistency as a business owner, as a creative, as a photographer, whatever it is you're doing, you guys. Ooh, I got to thank you for listening. And, the word that I like to talk about and mention the most is consistency. It's something that I work really hard at doing for myself. And I would invite you to really focus on your consistencies and look at technology for what it's worth. Look at it for its cost factors, what it's going to cost you, and what's the gain, what's the productivity, what is it going to produce, how's that going to affect your workflow. Ultimately, if it works for you and you feel good about it, do it, right? We do it. We're using technology for everything that we do. This app, that app, over and over again, on and on. Look, it's not going to stop, but just make it work for you. My name is Keith B. Dixon. This has been the Kilo Bravo Delta Zone podcast broadcast all day, every day, you guys. I am working on getting more consistent with the postings of these podcasts. I really am. At the minimum, I can definitely tell you we'll get one a week and more. So my goal is to produce one podcast a week on top of everything else that I'm doing. One podcast a week. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next time. Be sure to subscribe if you're listening to, if you like the content, if you're excited about the content, if you're following me on other platforms and you just want to hear a different side of who Keith B. Dixon is, subscribe. Subscribe to my YouTube channel as well. I'm on Periscope, Facebook, Keith B. Dixon on Periscope. Keith B. Dixon on YouTube. Everything is Keith B. Dixon. I'm easy to find. Let's go. I'll see you next time. Thank you.